Business Unity and Business Leadership South Africa have launched a second report that homes in on funding options for a basic income grant. The debate around the feasibility of such a grant is deep and it's complex, and it must be implemented intelligently and effectively. What is this latest research saying? Cas Kuvadia, the CEO of Business Unity South Africa, joins us to share the findings. Cas, good evening to you and welcome. We have three logical options available, each with its own complexities and impacts. Let's begin with the two you believe won't be viable: cutting other expenditure in the budget and issuing more debt.
Yeah, so we don't think there's fat in any departmental budgets to actually cut and redirect towards a basic income grant. If we were looking at this a little while back, there might have been possibilities, but we don't think there are possibilities now. And then raising more debt, given the state of our economy, given that we are in sub-investment grade, although rating agencies did raise the outlook from negative to positive. We think that raising money now, and interest rates also going up, not just in South Africa, but globally, raising debt is not an option because we just cannot afford that. And to put debt into social expenditure without any possibility of income to service that debt is just not feasible at this point in time. So those two options, in our view, are not feasible.
So that leaves raising taxes. And Cas, before we light our hair on fire, tell us why this path makes sense in the way that you envision it.
Well, it would make sense under certain circumstances. So right now we have a very narrow tax base. To tax that narrow tax base further would be, in our view, unsustainable. We don't believe that corporate tax can be raised any further in this climate because of low economic growth, and our corporate taxes are reasonably competitive, so we shouldn't be raising them anymore. If we had a situation where we had increased growth, where the intervention in the economy that we've been talking about for quite some time to actually bring investment and get economic growth going, and then employ more people and therefore broaden the tax base, there could be possibilities sometime in future. But right now, we don't think there's space for a tax increase. Why are we saying that that could be feasible is that it's feasible under particular circumstances, and that is circumstances that lead to a substantial broadening of the tax base from what we have at the moment. There's a very few people in the country paying tax at the moment, and if you increase taxes on those people, then you'll actually get behaviors that are negative, and that would actually have an impact on revenue collection generally. So what we are saying is that out of the three options, the third option is feasible, but under very, very different conditions, under very, very different circumstances, only when we have substantial growth, only when we have a broader tax base, and only at a time when we are able to reduce our debt to GDP ratio, at a time when we're able to employ more people, because that then reduces the number of people that we need to actually cater for with a basic income grant. So all those circumstances need to be in place before we can consider the third option.
Cas, not to be... I'm so sorry. Not to be cynical, but all those sort of perfect environments or contexts that need to exist before taxing the tax base and a widened tax base, as you've just described, to exist, it looks, it sounds like a time way in the future, because it's certainly not within our purview right now.
It is way in the future. Let's be practical about this. At this point in time, we have no economic growth. We have very little investment coming into the country. We have a very, very narrow tax base. We have a situation in our country where corporates, if you, within the context of an environment where business growth and economic growth is not possible until we make the necessary interventions, to tax corporates further would be counterproductive. So we don't have those such set of circumstances. And we think that, you know, we've seen recently an example that if we actually are able to generate income like we did the once-off sort of boost to taxation and taxable boost to the revenue as a result of the commodity price increase, which is not a permanent increase. And with that, we were able to fund the tours, the 350 rand tours. Now, we need that sort of a situation on a permanent basis, and that can only happen if we have economic growth. Through the economic growth, we employ more people. Through employing more people, we have a broader tax base, and then you can then tax that broader tax base. At this point in time, if you're looking at taxing the tax base that exists currently with more taxes, then that will have to be spread between not just at high income people, but amongst middle income and low income people as well, those paying taxes anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you talk about temporary boons in our economy. We talked about I think the twin commodity price cycle benefits, you know, to the country's revenue as being those opportunities, which of course are not sustainable. So we don't know if they'll happen again. Yeah. But what I'm wondering is, this report was done in a time then where people aren't feeling as under strain as they are now. We heard, you know, the decision from the Monetary Policy Committee and the Reserve Bank on that 75, you know, basis point increase on interest rates. The likelihood of more interest rates and tough ones just like that in the next couple of cycles are highly imminent and probable. You've got fuel increases, you've got food increases, you've got electricity going up. I'm not sure there's ever going to be an environment then, read together with what you're saying in this research report, that creates an environment that is ever going to be conducive to a basic income grant. Because, well, you know, people can't sustain it.
I'm not too sure I agree with that, because, I mean, look at some of the items that are causing increases in inflation, and as a result of that, increases in interest rates. Administered prices, for instance, that's within our control. If we're more efficient, if we're more effective in the way we're managing things, we could get administrative prices down and have a positive impact on inflation. The government is now looking at processes to deregulate the fuel industry, and that could have a positive impact on inflation. So if we actually begin to make interventions that have positive impact on inflation and get inflation back into the 3 to 6% range from the 7.4% that it's in currently, we begin to actually impact on interest rates, and the upward interest rate cycle may not then be necessary. But at this point in time, it is. And what we've been saying is that there's unfortunately no quick fix to this. We can't fund this if we don't have money. And right now we don't have the money. We don't have the ability to actually raise money at interest rates that we could actually bear as an economy. And fiscus at the moment is constrained. Now, those are the realities. It's not an ideological issue. It's not an issue that we, you know, what we're saying that we need to debate how we fund the basic income grant. We're not saying that we shouldn't have a basic income grant.
Okay.
But the issue is that until and we've been saying for quite a few years, the sort of interventions that need to be made in the economy and the benefits of that. If we had done that 5, 6, 7 years ago, we might not be in the position we are currently, and this might be a different debate on how we fund a basic income grant.
Cass Kuvadia, thank you for talking to us this evening. We appreciate your time and sharing the details of that second report on a basic income grant. Cass is BUSA CEO. On that note, we'll take our headlines if you missed them earlier.